Some glad morning when this life is o'er,
I'll Fly Away. There's probably no way of knowing the times that song is sung in a week's time around the globe, or the effect that it's had on countless lives, or the times it's been recorded. It is just a simple country song. However, it was the song that transported things to a completely different place for the Chuck Wagon Gang.
when I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away, fly away, oh, fly away. I'll fly away, oh, glory, I fly away in the morning. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away, fly away, fly away.
When I think of the Chuck Wagon Gang, I think of the word icon.
One of the church groups that I thought was really good was the Chuck Wagon Gang.
Probably the oldest traditional gospel group that I remember.
Chuck Wagon Gang's music to me has always been that unbreakable, steady, unmovable truth.
The Chuck Wagon Gang really was a piece of American history.
I got to see them when I was a teenager, and it set all of the wheels in motion for me.
This music was life-changing.
It's very obvious that Shay is called to be there and this group is called to do what they do, because when you sit in the audience and you listen to them, you sense the presence of what they're doing. You sense the presence of God.
Brown church in the bay.
The Chuck Wagon Gang, in my opinion, are truly American musical royalty. And if you go back to the beginning of that group in the 1930s, if you look around the musical landscape of America at that time, Louis Armstrong was representing jazz, the blues and hot music. Bob Wills and his guys, the Carter family from the Appalachian Mountains. But the Chuck Wagon Gang were there. Had they done nothing else except record I'll Fly Away, their legacy would have been secure, for all times.
The Chuck Wagon Gang was a family, and their name was Carter. No relation to the Carter family of Virginia. And when they were starting out, times were especially hard. Great Depression was going on. You had migrant farmers going to areas where they might be able to work to hopefully feed their families.
The Depression hit especially hard in rural Texas. It hit hard early, and it stayed long and deep. Any flicker of hope, any rumor of hope was seized upon. And here comes the Chuck Wagon Gang. My recollection may have been a 15-minute radio program. It lifted spirits. When the radio went off, spirits would drop down again, but they were higher than when the program came on.
They actually began back in the early 1930s, and they were living out in West Texas. It was Mom and Dad Carter and 9 kids. My grandmother, Anna, her real name Effie, was one of those 9 kids, and they were itinerant cotton field hands.
And they were literally living hand to mouth. It was a very tough existence.
And my grandmother got very sick, and they had at that time run out of work, and so there was no money for a doctor or medicine. So Dad Carter decided, I guess he'd do the only other thing they knew how to do, which was sing. And they took his oldest son Jim, his oldest daughter Rose, and they went to a local station there in Lubbock. They were placed on the radio there, they got the job. They were paid their first week's salary in advance. It was $12.50. So that's how they got their start on the radio as a trio. When my grandmother got the medicine, she got better, joined the trio, they formed the Carter Quartet.
When they got to Fort Worth, Texas in 1936, they became the Chuck Wagon Gang.
Radio was the magic carpet which took you places. And what the Chuck Wagon Gang did was take you to a higher, better, happier place.
Moses stood on holy ground, fire from God descended down, set the road.
The way that the Chuck Wagon Gang really started singing, they would come in after working all day in the fields, and they would gather out on the back porch, and they would sing Western ballads and probably hymns and sacred songs. And my grandmother told me one time that by the time that they had finished their work and actually got out there to begin singing, it was dark. And so they knew that the other field hands and their neighbors had come around to listen because they could see the light from the cigarettes in the darkness, little red lights. and they knew that their other field hands were there listening in, so kind of their first audience, if you will.